Today is 12 November 2023. We'll play some music, quite simple, quite clear. We'll move forward. We will do the review, probably make a division of the issue, and we are at the wild data task WDA STEP 4 phase 2, which is counterfeit and institutional decisions. We'll have that at the past something kind of was really relevant to understand, which was the concurrent interest from something new, and in general having the medical statements and situations as drug use or dependence, any kind of dependence that puts you in a hospital field or something like this with fake records and statement and medical statement observed since COVID-19. Here we are having the victims of the streets and the victims of the institutional misuse of power at medical fields, and was observed institutional crime at medical areas. If made by state, it's a state crime at the medical field. In some areas is something that happen in all areas. Organ trafficking, bondage, dominance, submission. Sometimes people that is not inside some organization that do this kind of thing for punishment or ethical consequence like criminal groups, but for pleasure, and was observed murders in USA this way. We could observe that some medical procedures can change temporarily the appearance of the offenders, and they will perpetrate the crime if got caught on cameras during the trial. Will be something that she will disappear kind of by this kind of thing. And we were working at the trust scam, and we have a paycheck that is basically a relation debit and credit, but we must have a reliable trustee that must be reliable. We could observe that the difference with a corruption level, indeed, even something discrete, but with some kind of sequential or repeated movement, we will unveil the frequency that allow to discover this kind of parallel organization or mobilization inside regular areas. Can be anything. We could observe that this was leading to public corruption and corporate corruption with oriented trace as -1, optimized value to the machine, and the system of defense can have this rhythm and present this kind of model, which is the regular pattern of things you do, corrupted and structured, even discrete, changing the things you do, and the level will be lower until it will be totally against the law as institutional power, and the power misuse was charged this way at the International Criminal Court, observing the corruption as the common segment, economic espionage plus obstruction and other crimes. We expect at least 15 years in Europe or USA. If this architecture is having the case, the protection is alright. In Brazil and in other areas, if you do not respect the right, you of course will understand that the protection engulf also the institutions and the chance on it. We can observe that the sequential fail indeed is exposed by the complementary thing, trying to engulf my matrix and starts at the internal failure, at the internal control, and fake records cover all things, putting lies and something real. We will observe that the purpose of things indeed is the relevant argument. We have a finalism theory on Germany, Hans, if you consider the observation as international criminal court or judicial power, and the domain of circumstance also on Germany. In both cases, the finalism, in the way you apply the power or decision, will for sure be considered according with the theory in Italy as Pirraioli and Bobby, which is you have the right to apply the law and you have the right as offender as be the law applied. See, and must be the most proper application since you have this law. In a neutral area, we recommended policies. Because the relation public corruption and institutional corruption and corporate corruption go as institutional corruption, unveiled as institutional crime and criminality at stake by checks unveiled and currently still in blazing act by the misuse of power, heavy storage of things on bank, unveiled. That kind of the victims are changing, but the offenders are pretty much the same, especially if we are considering institution and architecture. With a concurrent segment observed at the matrix G20 up to 197, projected as fractal from Brazil internal space that didn't respect the right by violated guarantees systematically made to hurt, for instance, this effort and having hurt crossed lines as protection, freedom, and others, including others constitutions. The freedom, for instance, are basic premises in other society. We observe that the pattern of violence indeed goes similar as the pattern of records we have, considering the instruments available. We will have a large number of information, and in each cycle that I loop, if I modify things, indeed I'm changing the past by needs at the current time to set the future in a near future, the circumstance desired, for instance, to avoid the legal consequence. By this, the Security Forum has the cross-cut, crossing information and having not only a unique source, especially as big data. By this, we created the database Cgqm and the portfolio to unveil that the misuse of power in Brazil is the same power misused in USA if concurrent at purpose to cover the power previously misused. Indeed, we have the association of both. This idea bring the trust scam. The trust scam go as corruption with legitimacy of the judicial power USA, since not linked with the problem, and having the dismiss list and the dismiss order at the institution of checks at the judicial power in USA serving the organized crime or linked with. The exception will be if got linked with by a signature in an abusive procedure in good faith, and the not reliable or the faithless argument that put this situation indeed sets a fraud or a hoax to push the criminal association, right? We will observe that, for instance, the IBM and AT&T as century companies in USA and fully providers of many things will be an interval in the middle that can be something health or not. The interest, for instance, on both as achieve gains probably can put this in a situation risky. And if this interest as achieve gain became the need to have gains achieved by internal failure, pushing the association with investors that sometimes make all things and start the workflow by things really risky, you observe that the produced things will be kind of not reliable by the human resources you have, misusing instruments available at your company. If the CEO allow it, the customers got hurt by the architecture of resources and the productive system of these companies. They can present a complaint that will be turned into a case from arbitration, for instance, with transference to the judicial power, considering the relevance and the sensibility of the issue. Open a directory as US defense to understand how this go, and for sure dismantle this architecture, putting the CEO out or the head with the responsibility as allowing the criminal architecture from inside out can be the owner. For instance, if the Microsoft did this and the founder allowed this, the founder can be destituted, right? We requested to do this as review of things, and this will kind of do divisions at matrix integrated, and the cluster or arrays inside are codified from corruption, considering the regular layout, but unveiling criminal scams, all things going inside a regular space. This is observed because the investment money curve and liquidity money curve has lost as capacity movement back forward, I would say, and advantage you offer then stability and security, even as domestic security by silence about crimes. Indeed is a decision, and the consequence you must face by this decision. It's observed that some movement at the curves are kind of reversal, and if it's reversal, it implies the contrary application of resources, and of course that the contrary sense about the premises at the economy as limited resources. You consider things unlimited, of course that you will need records to fit this and make this comfortable and change the circumstance as you told at the past, considering the needs on present time to prevent the consequence at the future. It was the database model as approach, and we can track this one more time by the frequency as internal risk, running parallel scheme by its own goals. We will have one extra minute, but we will break and move forward.